Wilfrid Laurier head coach Michael Faulds joins me fresh off signing a new extension through 2030. Michael, how did this come about?
Yeah, I just think, and I give a lot of credit to our athletic director, Kate McRae Bristol. She's been our athletic director now for a few years, and she realized what a great season we've had. She also realized, I'm coming to the end of another contract, and she wanted to make sure that I wanted to call Laurier home and that I was quite comfortable and not getting to the end of a contract and having questions. So a lot of credit to her, and just super excited to see the longevity of this program and how long I've been here already since 2013, and knowing that that's going to continue for a very long future.
The questions that you get the most center around Western University and potentially going in there after, if he even ever does, Greg Marshall steps aside or retires from being a head coach in football. This contract, at least from my view, would sort of squash all of that. How does that open up recruiting for you?
Yeah, I would think it would help recruiting. I think a lot of other teams are probably telling recruits, well, how long is Coach Faulds going to be there? Is Coach Marshall going to retire? His roots are at Western. And I tell all recruits, I love my time at Western. I love Coach Marshall. He's a mentor of mine, but I've been here 2.5 times as long as I was ever in London, Ontario. So I truly have all of this purple in my wardrobe. And I'm happy to have that extension now. And hopefully recruits will realize that stability. Not just myself, our offensive coordinator, Todd Galloway, our defensive coordinator, Coach Ron Van Worker. We will really have had stability within our coaching ranks in comparison to a lot of other, you see it with U Sports teams, you see it with the CFL and the NFL. There is a lot of turnover in coaching. So when a kid can commit to you, and they are going to have the same coordinators, the same positional coaches, and ultimately the same head coach in their time, that's special.
And you talk about this, but you actually live it because you and your family have been in the Kitchener-Waterloo area for a long time now, correct?
Yeah, so we've been here now since 2013, when I moved from York University as a 29-year-old. And I think at the time you don't realize how long you're going to be somewhere. I just wanted to be a competitor and put together the best Golden Hawk product on the field. So my head was down, meeting people, meeting alumni, putting together practice schedules, trying to get our team motivated to win football games. And before you know it, you're here 5 years. And then you lift your head up, get your head above water again, and you're here for 10 years. And now you're signing a 5-year contract after 12 years. So it is a special time, and time does fly when you're enjoying what you're doing and where you are. Even this season, playing 12 games, it seemed like the shortest season we've had, just because we were having so much fun, and each and every week was fun. And I look at my time here at Laurier very similarly.
You're the second longest tenured head coach in Golden Hawks football history, just passing Gary Jeffries. Tuffy Knight is the longest at 19 seasons. I'm sure you'll eventually get to that if you want to. And a lot of people, I think, would ask about your success at Laurier and how that's come to fruition despite some of the, let's say, facility challenges that you've had to deal with. So, what's your secret sauce in consistently putting together a program that is competitive year in and year out, and now competes for Yates Cups and Vanier Cups, it seems like, on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I'd say it's two things. I think I always tell our guys the secret to success is knowing that there is no secret. It's not, what you're going to put in your body. It's not what you're going to do. It's how you work every single day and how hard you do work. And then, like this contract shows, for me, it is about the people. Having good coaches, having good staff, recruiting the right players, and the culture we have here at Laurier Football is very, very strong. So regardless of not having beautiful facilities for most of our time here, and a lot of that is going to change, we've been able to outwork a lot of teams, and we've had that consistency within our coaching ranks that has allowed us to really punch above our weight class, and to have the success we are having now. So to continue on with that and continue with this momentum is what we're looking to do.
You mentioned the word outworking there, and that's a literal term for you because if I'm correct, you're the only team in Ontario and perhaps Canada that would practice after your season had ended if you had not gotten to the Vanier Cup. Where did that idea come about, and how much do you think that helped your team have an undefeated season and go all the way to the Vanier Cup, losing to Laval in 2024?
Yeah, so it all stems with me, and I tell our players this all the time, is to have a no regrets lifestyle. For me, if I don't do the 20 allowed practices that U Sports give us, and we don't win a Yates Cup and we don't win a Vanier Cup, I'm going to live with regrets of how good we could have been if I used all 20 practices. If we use all 20 and don't win a Yates and don't win a Vanier, at least I'll have no regrets about our body of work. So where it actually stemmed when I was an assistant coach with York University, it drove me nuts that we were the worst team in the country. We didn't make the playoffs. All those teams that were already better than us played weeks and weeks and weeks beyond when our season ended. And we were sitting at home thinking we're going to improve and beat some of these teams the next year. So I told myself, if I'm ever in a position of power and our team is inferior to other teams, then we need to close that gap somehow. And as here at Laurier in 2013, we didn't make the playoffs, but we practiced longer than a lot of those teams that had a first round exit in the playoffs or even a second round exit. Even the teams that won the Yates Cup, we still practiced longer than them. And that's how we really closed the gap. So even in 2016, when we lost in the national semifinals at Laval, we still practiced that very next week, the Vanier Cup week, knowing that one day we're going to be playing for the Vanier Cup. So it's just a mindset we have that we're not going to be outworked and that we're not going to have any regrets.
You're literally out there shoveling snow to get these practices in for the people that don't know. But you mentioned Laval and the Vanier Cup. It was a close game. It seemed like going into that one, and it probably doesn't matter much to you or Glenn Constantin, the head coach there for the Rouge et Or, but that the Golden Hawks were the favorites. How did it play out on the field and from your review on tape?
Yeah, so I would say, first off, they played a heck of a game. And I think their game plan was really smart. So anytime you can keep 13 Taylor Elgersma off the field, that's what you're trying to do. So there's a lot of hype that obviously our defense played outstanding and we didn't give up a touchdown. But I think that was exactly Laval's game plan. If we could have a 10 to 12 play drive, take 6-7 minutes off the clock, see 13 sitting on the sideline, and then kick a field goal, they would take that. And when you look at the final stats, we had 12-13 less plays. We had 12 to 13 less minutes on the field. So we just didn't quite make enough plays. I was proud of how we responded early in the third, down 10. I told our guys at halftime, we're going to score a touchdown coming out of the third quarter. We're going to get some defensive stops and we're going to gain momentum. And that's exactly what we did. We cut it to 17-14. We caused a 2-and-out. Then on the next drive, we even forced a fumble at midfield, recovered it. But just on those possessions, we couldn't quite do enough to get in field goal range or to score a touchdown ourselves. So they maintained that 3-point spread, and we just couldn't get over that hump. So credit to them. Their defense played outstanding. Our defense played outstanding. And just like most close games, you're looking at 3, 4, 5 plays that could change an outcome.
You mentioned 13, Taylor Elgersma. For the people that don't know, he was the Heck Crichton Trophy winner in 2024, the best U Sports quarterback on the field by a country mile, in my estimation. And one last point on the Vanier Cup, because one play that sticks out to me was the first series, I believe was a corner route to Ethan Jordan. Is that right?
Yeah, it is right.
That was just missed. If that was hit, do you think that would have burst the entire thing open and had a different outcome?
Yeah, most definitely could have been. Even you look at the first play, we gained 9 yards on the first play, but had a careless penalty that brought us behind the sticks. So that's what I mean. There's so many plays, that deep corner route. We had another Taylor Elgersma to Ethan Jordan corner route right in front of our bench that just missed. So big plays that we were used to making during the season and no excuse that just didn't go our way in that game offensively. We had a turnover, which, a fumble, which we don't typically do. So a couple things, and credit to Laval. Like anytime our ball carriers had the football, they were punching at it, they were clawing at it. So you could see just how well coached they were. But I'm happy our team and then the OUA representative didn't look out of place. I think a lot of people look at the RCQ and there's a common thought that, Montreal, Laval, these two outstanding teams, whoever comes out, it's going to be a cakewalk for them. We truly believe, obviously, we were in a one-score game with them and a couple plays here and there, and it could have been a different outcome. So we're right there, and that's our goal this offseason is to get back there.
There's a lot of focus on Taylor Elgersma leading into that Vanier Cup and after now as he's into the draft process. You've fielded interest and calls and requests for film from a bunch of NFL teams. How many? Can you kind of put a number on that? And is this really real? Like, can he get a legit shot in the NFL?
Yeah, I would say probably 5 to 10 NFL teams now. And then obviously the 9 CFL teams. But I've almost said this being kind of a 6'2" Canadian quarterback himself, that Taylor is actually more NFL pro ready, I feel, than CFL pro ready. And the way there's been some politics and just kind of belief around Canadian quarterbacks here in the CFL, it might almost take NFL interest for the Canadian, teams to have interest in him as well. As we know, he's 6'6", he's, 225 pounds. So when you think of Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Josh Allen and all these prototype NFL quarterbacks, well, that's Taylor Elgersma. When you think of the Rourkes, when you think of myself, yourself, Danny Brannigan, most of us Canadian quarterbacks over the years have been 6'1" to 6'3". This is the first time we have a legit NFL pro-type body with an NFL arm. And he's got what it takes between the ears, too. I think what most impressed me about Taylor, it is leadership qualities and how smart he is.
When you talk about the CFL and Canadian quarterbacks, it's a soft spot for me, and I'm sure it is for you, too. I think of Trey Ford comes to mind. He's been anointed as the franchise guy in Edmonton with the Elks, gets a contract that's worth over $300,000 in 2024. Can that help U Sports quarterbacks gain traction with CFL personnel people and coaches who are making these decisions and potentially getting more opportunities for guys like Taylor Elgersma? And, I should say, expand it a little bit more, because this draft class of just U Sports quarterbacks is pretty stacked, right? You look at Arnaud Desjardins and Laval, who played excellent in that Vanier Cup. Jackson Tuchinski is arguably as athletic as they come with the University of Manitoba Bisons. And there are others, you go to Garrett Rooker with UBC. Like, there's a bunch of guys. So how impactful, with your knowledge, having, played up through the system, been a star at Western University, backing up Bruce Gradkowski at Toledo, can Trey Ford really boost this forward to get U Sports quarterbacks even more legitimate opportunities in the CFL?
Yeah, I think it's going to help. Obviously, Trey had an outstanding career across the street here at Waterloo. And because he was only trained in U Sports, and him having success, I think really does open it up to all the names you mentioned. You could add Keegan Hall from McMaster to that list as well. A different standard is, a Canadian quarterback like Nathan Rourke, obviously trained in the States. So I think there's a little bit more appetite when you played, say, for the Ohio Bobcats and then come up, or Curtis playing for Indiana. But for the Canadian U Sports trained quarterbacks, Trey Ford really is the model of success. So I think he paves the way. If Taylor can get drafted and have some success, then it really helps future quarterbacks. And I think there are more and more Canadian coaches and personnel in the CFL now that have U Sport backgrounds. And I think they're realizing that the quality of U Sport football has grown and grown and grown over the years. And I also think the transfer portal and the NIL issues in the States are going to hamper a little bit Canadians' abilities to go play south of the border, which will only increase the quality of U Sport football here. We're going to have a lot of guys that could play D1 football. Like Taylor Elgersma could have played D1 football, but he's playing right here at Laurier. And I think we're going to see more examples of that.
I should mention Evan Hillock in that mix too of legitimate Canadian University quarterbacks. Last thing on Taylor before we move forward to other topics, the way that you found him and then developed him, and that came to mind when you talked about him and potentially having the ability to play NCAA Division I Power 4 conference football, whatever they're calling it now. That wasn't necessarily the case when you discovered him. Can you tell us that story and then how he developed to be a Hec Crichton Trophy winner who is now getting calls and interest from NFL teams?
Yeah, so we basically had this gangly ex-hockey player at our high school camp back in 2019. And like most high school camps, you have 15 to 20 quarterbacks and everyone's salivating to get reps in one-on-ones and skelly. And here's this bullish kid hockey player from London stealing all the reps. So right away, I loved his aggressiveness. I loved his leadership and all of those things. And he went on to play that 2019 Caesars senior season. Like a lot of Ontario boys, he decided to go back for another year, what's called a victory year, to play one more year of high school with his buddies. And then a global pandemic broke. So in that global pandemic, he made the mature, smart decision. Well, there's going to be no U Sport football. There's going to be no Canadian high school football. I've already got accepted into Laurier. I like Coach Faulds. I like Coach Galloway. Why don't I go now and learn the playbook and be a sponge and get some university classes under my belt? And that's exactly what he did. So he made the jump when a lot of people thought he was going back. He took advantage of a global pandemic to just be an absolute sponge and even moved out here to Waterloo to do so. And then we saw it over his career. You know, he was a backup. Then he was a starting quarterback that went 5-3 and won one playoff game. Then he was a starting quarterback that went 7-1 and lost in a Yates Cup, but won 2 playoff games. And then in his senior year goes 8-0, takes us to the Vanier Cup, wins a Yates Cup, wins a Hec Crichton. So it was a steady progression. But I look all the way back even to that 2019 high school camp. Here's a kid that got cut from Team Ontario and used that as motivation. And now he's gaining NFL interest, as you said.
Lots of pro interest in Taylor Elgersma. And that makes me think, well, what about his head coach? Has there been CFL or potentially NFL interest in you to join a coaching staff in the pros?
Yeah, not a lot. There's been a couple of CFL teams over the years that have dangled kind of positional coaching positions in front of me, which, you know, there is a lack of interest there. But in the coaching ranks in U Sports, there's so many guys like the both namesakes, the Greg Marshalls, the Western Greg Marshall coaching with Hamilton. Obviously, you think of Marcel Belfait in Ottawa having a CFL background. So there's been lots of coaches that have gone back and forth. Stefan Potasic at McMaster a little bit, but not so much for myself. I think obviously CFL teams like to bring in Americans, and it seems there's a lack of new blood in the CFL. It seems to be coordinators and positional coaches, and even in the front offices, it's the same people just moving and putting on a different logo hat every year and moving to a different Canadian city. There rarely is new U Sport blood or even NCAA blood coming in there. It's just the same 9 people, the same 9 teams moving around.
That's why I ask you, because, you know, there's a number of talented coaches who have thought in different ways, like yourself, with utilizing the extra practices, even when your team either didn't make the playoffs or was out of the playoffs, that could infuse some new ideas, especially into the CFL, because it kind of does seem like an old boys club for the most part in a little bit of a way. And at least teams reaching out to you makes me feel a little bit more excited that they've dangled those in front of you. So I probably think that, you know, based on what you said, you're a Canadian university guy through and through, but I guess we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, most definitely. What I love about this age group is you truly feel like you have an impact on them. They come in at 17, 18-year-olds as teenage males, and they're leaving here as men. And you've helped shape them. They've dealt with adversity, and you're shaping them up for life and sending them out in the community as Laurier grads. So the impact we're having on their lives is very significant. And I feel like my role is more than just X's and O's. In fact, I do very little X's and O's. It's about, maturing and the leadership qualities amongst these young guys, which I love.
Taylor Elgersma is moving on, probably going to be in the pros. Are you preparing to be without him for the 2025 OUA and U Sports season? And if so, who could be your starting quarterback?
Yeah, we are. So we have Taylor's the headliner, but we have 8 guys that are preparing for, the CFL combine. And as I tell our coaching staff and I tell our current players, we're planning our practices and our recruiting based on all of them not being back. So we're excited if any of them do come back, but we're planning as if they're not. And we've got some good quarterbacks in-house. We've got Isaac Willis, Keyshawn Dorsey, Will Russell, Nathan Constancio. So we've got 4 guys in-house that we're quite excited about. And they're all going to get a ton of reps this winter. As I alluded to earlier, we're going to use all 20 out of season practices given to us, and all of them are going to get a great fair chance. And hopefully we can have somewhat of a decision made come the end of spring camp.
Any Taylor Elgersmas in the mix there in terms of being Het Crichton possibilities?
I don't think there's a Taylor. There's no 6'6" guy in there, and I'd hate to put that pressure on them. And I think Laurier football is going to have a lot of success next year, but we might have to win in slightly different ways. And we might have to do things slightly different offensively, not having that 6'6" guy back there. But everyone knows there are different ways that you can win football games, different ways to have success. And whichever guy is back there, we're going to make sure they have the pieces around them and they're going to have the system around them to be able to have that success.
Knowing you and the coaching staff, it'll be intriguing to watch the offense and how the team comes together to compete for another Yates Cup and potentially a Vania Cup as well. Michael, again, congratulations on the extension through 2030. Big time deal happening with the Golden Hawks football program. We appreciate your time and wish you the best of success in the future.
Greatly appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Justin.